All right, so good morning, everyone. Today we're going to cover Module 2, Fighters in the War Against Cybercrime. It's a very small little module, so we'll go ahead and get through there. So the main objective of this particular section is to be able to prepare you for a career in cybersecurity operations. Remember that this whole course is designed to get you to be a cybersecurity analyst, which is your entry-level jobs in cybersecurity. Doesn't mean you can't go above it, doesn't mean you can't do anything like that. It's just that's what we're trying to get you, is that baseline preparation. So in the Cybersecurity Operations Center, oftenly known as the SOC, is usually what you'll see around there. We'll look a little bit about their mission, and then being the defender, where you're the analyst, the kind of resources available for you to help prepare in that particular degree. All right. So the elements of a SOC. Again, a SOC is a Security Operations Center. If you're a networking person, you probably heard the word NOC over some point in time, which is the Network Operations Center. And today, those can be one of the one of the same, or they could be a totally different location. It could be a totally different program. It all depends on how much is in-house, how that kind of stuff is, whether you operate it yourself or do it outside. So as they're talking about here, formalized structure and discipline is defending cybersecurity threat organizations through the services of a SOC. They have a broad range of services ranging from monitoring and management to comprehensive threat solutions and customized hosted security. And then this gets a little bit in what I was talking about, where it could either be wholly in-house, it could be owned and operated by a separate business, or elements of a SOC can be contracted out to other security vendors such as Cisco Managed Security Services. So if you're local here to Hayes, you know that we have a couple ISPs in town, internet service providers, and one of those is Nextech. And Nextech has a NOC. It's based out of Victoria over there. And they also are starting to have portions of that be a SOC. And so they do a security operations there as well. Not near as major as their NOC, but their NOC is so large that they actually subcontract out from other ISPs and other smaller partners, whether it be their customers, etc. If they want to have a NOC service that runs 24/7 all the time, they can actually subcontract out Nextech to cover that portion of their business for them. And they have built and grown a pretty good sized NOC over in Victoria just simply for this particular purpose now. So people in a SOC, there's a couple different roles. You have tier 1, which is your alert analysts. They're the ones that are, monitoring for incoming alerts, verify that it's a true incident has occurred, and forward those tickets to a tier 2 if necessary. This is generally what you would have with an outcoming bachelor's degree. This is kind of that entry level spot that you would have within a SOC. You could also be an incident responder, which is responsible for deep investigation of those incidents and advise remediation or action taken. Notice that it's advising at this point. You're not actually the one that is going to take that remediation. So all that means is that, one, not only did you catch the alert coming in, you probably forward that ticket up to a tier 2. These guys are over here making sure that it's a real deep investigation, collecting even further data as to what's going on, etc. But they don't necessarily do the remediate action. In other words, they don't go patch the servers, they don't go fix the firewall rules, they don't patch the routers for different routes, etc. Those are typically reserved for your tier 3s, and those are basically experts in the network, endpoint, threat intelligence, malware, reversal engineering, tracing, etc., and then determine how it can impact and how they can remove it. They are deeply rooted in the hunt for potential threats and implemented threat detection tools. They're kind of the master's level type program that know how to do penetration testing and that kind of stuff, ethical hacking, etc. So as a master's degree, this is probably where you would come in the most. Not to say that you couldn't start here and work your way up. That's pretty common within a SOC as they grow in-house. And then you have a SOC manager, which manages all the resources for the SOC, serves as a point of contact, etc. So you can see all these tier 1 level analysts, and then tier 2, and then up to threat level hunters. And notice that each one has a concentration here as to what they specialize in. So where this is talking about a very major SOC center, if you were working at a very major SOC center, they have all these different tiers blown out. Now, if you're wholly in-house, et cetera, you may be, all three of these levels that come in there. Or you may have somebody that's, taking the frontline stuff, passing it up to a responder, and then on up to a SME, or you may be this portion that is both the incident responder and the SME section. But to get really here, you've got to have pretty deep expertise, and that's the reason that they break it out into different categories at that point. If you're not familiar with the SANS Institute, which is a very big cybersecurity or security policy maker and education for cybersecurity, they map this out here on the screen, and we'll see a lot about SANS Institute as we go through the course. All right, so within a SOC, we kind of mentioned this a little bit more. The cybersecurity analyst is required to monitor the security alert queues and investigate assigned alerts. Ticket system is used to these alerts and goes up. So a tier 1 is going to kind of monitor the systems. If you've ever been to a NOC or even a SOC, you basically walk in and it's just a room littered with television monitors or computer monitors, etc., that are constantly monitoring the network. And when they have flags set up or graphs or charts, notifications, SNMP protocol, that kind of stuff, when it triggers an alarm up there, then that's when a tier 1 analyst would go in, open up a ticket, determine whether it's an actual threat or whether it's just a false alarm or on the verge of being the threat. Then once they've triggered that, they could set up the ticket and then do mitigation on that part, just real basic, For example, on a NOC type scenario, again, that's a network operations center, what they'll do is that they're monitoring too much traffic flowing in a different direction. For example, a fiber line got cut or something like that. Then they can go ahead and route trouble tickets to go on through. On the security side, you may be noticing that you're getting a bunch of traffic come in to a particular port or a particular IP address that you are monitoring. And that could be an early example of a denial of service attack, a DOS attack. Or if you're noticing it's hitting you on all fronts, you may be looking at a dynamic denial of service hitting you as well. So lots of things that you can monitor within the SOC there. A lot of times, again, you're going to have a combination of a SOC and a NOC unless you're working for a big facility. All right, so a SOC needs to have what's called a SIME, and this is pretty common. We'll cover this, and you guys will get some hands-on with this. A SIME is a security information and event management system. And the idea is that it's going to monitor your firewalls, your network appliances, intrusion detection systems, also known as IDSs, and other devices in the network will generate. So you'll notice over here a SOC monitoring system, which is your SIME. All of these, whether it's traffic flow, traffic logs, system logs, endpoint data, all of this gets fed back to a SIME. And so if you're familiar with logging or a little bit of what's called syslog, these are basically sending syslog traffic back. On the network flows, they could be sending like Cisco NetFlow type packets coming back here, or if it's Juniper, it's JFlow. There's SFlow for switches, etc. And hopefully you guys covered a little bit in flows when you guys did your networking class, but if you didn't, a flow is basically just a logging of what's coming in from one IP address and going to another IP address. At its basic level, that is a flow, and then it's just logging that traffic going through your network. It's like looking at a long Wireshark, if you guys are familiar with Wireshark. But a flow can also be much more detailed, where it's breaking down, what port that it's coming in on, what protocols running on there. It could do up to layer 7 type analysis on these flows that come in. And then you're getting system logs from all the different servers, etc., as well as your routers, switches, etc. This is going to be useful for monitoring system logs. So typically, at this point, you guys have maybe looked at some logs on different devices, but you're not really looking at logs unless you're already knowingly troubleshooting a problem. By sending all these logs up to a SIME, you can then set thresholds up here in this monitoring device that would allow you to trigger things based on logs. So instead of you digging for all the logs, you can simply do searches out here in the SIME, and it would go and collect all this data across your network so that you don't have to go and hunt for every single device to go and collect all this. So it's fantastic. It's a great way to collect, filter that data, detect, classify, analyze, and then investigate what's going on. All right, so the acronym SOAR is another popular one that when we're talking about this. So what that is it's a combination of your SIME and your security orchestration, automation, and response. It's basically what is your response plan to identifying a ticket or an issue within the network. And they're often paired together as capabilities that tend to complement one another. So large security operations teams will use both technologies to optimize their SOC, where, in the smaller ones, you may just have this as an in-house workflow for SOAR, which is basically where you create customized platform that integrates and customizes security tools. That's your orchestration. Automation is going to execute severity processes with a minimum amount of human intervention. You'll notice today a lot of what's going on within this automation, it could be at its very basic level where you're just setting rules and thresholds, but you're also getting a lot of machine learning going on today. And so computer machine learning, it's very nice to be able to understand how some of that works. It complements very well. A good example within your studies for this undergrad degree would be, for example, taking the Python course where you guys get into a little bit of scripting. In the Python course, you could eventually get to what's called Ansible. And Ansible is a script automation or a log management tool, which allows you to manage a ton of different devices that are out there on your network, whether it be servers, routers, firewalls, etc. And the automation that takes care of that is much better out. So when you get to this portion of it where you have minimum human intervention, it's going to do some either AI or machine learning in order to analyze these threats based on the criteria that you've set. And then at that point, the response is going to prescribe and execute those security protocols to be followed in response to those security events. So this could be a set of rule-based automation responses where we trigger something, or this could very well be just a set of your playbooks. What goes through there? What do you do when you expect this type of error and progress through there, and document, log that, and present that to whoever needs presented to. So that SOAR security platform is a way for you to gather alarm data from each component of the system as a whole. And then it provides tools to enable cases to be researched, assessed, investigated, emphasize integration for the automation of complex incident response workflows. And then you have predefined playbooks that would allow you to automatically respond to certain threats. Those can also be predefined rules and triggered by security personnel. So security is a little bit different than what you would see like in a NOC, in that you usually have to have way better logging and way better incident responses based on security protocols. Particularly if you're trying to meet certain compliances, and that's the big key with SOCs, is they are typically certified against certain compliances, and that is how they make their money. I mean, being able to handle some of those certifications, have PCI compliance for your personal identifiable information. PCI being for your credit card industry, but typically they'd be PII compliant. There's a whole lot of different compliances that you can have as a SOC. All right, so some things that are big within a SOC in terms of metrics, and these are your key performance indicators, just meaning, these are numbers. If you're going out hunting for somebody to be your SOC because you don't want to do it internally, you look for these particular metrics, and they got to explain what their performance is. So dwell time is going to be the length of time that threat actors have access to the network before they are detected and their access is stopped. Obviously, we want to keep that fairly minimal. Mean time to the detect is the average time it takes for a SOC personnel to identify valid security incidents that have occurred in the network. Mean time to respond, the average time where it takes for a stop and remediate a particular security incident. Mean time to contain is a time required to stop the incident from further damage. And then time to control, which is the time required to spread the malware in the network itself. So this could be anywhere of seconds, it could be minutes. Hopefully you're not getting into hours with these particular ones, but it's not unheard of. And if you're familiar with contracts, this is really getting into the key metrics that your contract guarantees, that you're going to have X amount of uptime or something like that. In a network or a NOC, and I keep comparing things to a NOC because some of you are more familiar with the NOC setting. In a NOC, you're going to have SLAs, which are your service line agreements, guaranteeing X amount of uptime. You may have heard the term 5 nines before, or 3 nines, or 4 nines. In a security metric, we do something very similar, where we're making sure that we have incident responses that are much faster in those particular catches. So there are some enterprise and managed security, like before we mentioned Cisco. If you don't have the ability to have your own in-house SOC, larger organizations may end up outsourcing a portion of their SOC operations. And for example, Cisco offers a wide range of that, whether it's incident response, preparedness, and management. And they have a bunch of different solutions down here that you can pay for and get access to if you are a large company. Security personnel need to understand that the organization, to accomplish its priorities and network availability, must be preserved. In other words, when you start seeing somebody attack with a denial of service attack, you can't just shut off your internet connection, right? You still have to accomplish what that organization is trying to do while trying to mitigate the network at the same time. And so every business and every industry has a limited number of tolerance for network downtime. That's back to the nines that we were talking about before. And that tolerance is eventually based upon comparison of cost of the downtime in relation to the cost of insuring against downtime. Security can't be so strong that it interferes with the needs of the employees or the business functions. And so there's always a trade-off between strong security and permitting efficient business functioning. So what are they really getting at in that area? The biggest one that comes to mind is going to be like VPNs. If you always have to have somebody connect to a VPN, or you have 5 layers of logins and things like that on the network to get into, do, and function within your business, or you always have to be on site, they don't allow anything off site, there's going to be some trade and some give and take on those particular policies. While it makes it uber secure, can they still accomplish the business that they're doing? And in some cases, yes. I mean, if they have no reason to be working from home or have no reason to access files from home, then you're great. But as we mentioned earlier in the last session, with everything going on with, for example, COVID-19, a lot of people that never would have thought they had work at home jobs for different industries now all of a sudden catch themselves working from home. And therefore their network operations and their security measures didn't ever take that into account. That was something that was never going to happen. And now it has to happen in order for that business to survive. So even though you may have rules in place, plan for the future, plan for something that could go different, and how quickly can you implement those security measures? That would be a huge raise if you could get one. It would be a great way for you to show that you have been working on a foresight program or a crash program. Say, for example, your main business or industry had a fire or a breakout or some other natural disaster. Can you make your NOC and your SOC pivot so that you can then have people work from home while they're doing repairs there? And so you need that disaster recovery plan as well. All right, so the next section here is going to talk about what it takes to become a defender. And there's a variety of cybersecurity certificates. Some of these we cover in other courses that we have, but ones that are relevant to the SOC itself is you becoming a Cisco certified CyberOps associate. That's exactly what this course is designed to point you towards. CompTIA has you as a cybersecurity analyst certification. It's called a CYSA. We may actually do some labs from the CYSA certification. I helped build some of those, and I'm actually getting them up for the next level certification. So we may very well do some of those labs, or I mix in a few of those. Those would be on NetLab. They're great hands-on labs as to what they currently have, and it's a good mix. We also have ISC squared information security certifications. These are very prevalent, very relevant certifications. One of the biggest ones being like your CISSP, which takes a lot of knowledge levels as well as years working in the field. But they also have some lower level ones that are available for a barrier to entry. ISC squared is probably one of the most prevalent around for that particular one. They're kind of an up and coming. If you guys are interested in ISC squared certifications, if you're not already a part of the cybersecurity club, I encourage you to reach out to them and become a part of that. I'm actually going to have a couple ISC squared certified people come and speak at the cybersecurity club events, which is all being done remotely. So this year, everything's going to be done via the Zoom. But I've got a guy who's certified as a CISSP and a couple other certifications from ISC squared. He also sits on the chapter in Wichita here. And so he would be able to give some information and things that they're working on, et cetera, for those particular certs. You also have the Global Information Assurance Certification, or the GIACs. There's a lot of GIAC certifications that are out there as well. You can just search for cybersecurity certifications on the internet and figure this out. One website that I encourage you to go look, let me see if I can find one here. It's going to be cyber, let's see here. Trying to remember what the name of it was. It's escaping me. I'll think of it here and I'll bring it back up, but it's a good cyber map that explains, one, the jobs that are out there as well as the certifications that are out there. I'll try to think of that. I don't know why it's escaping my head right now. All right. So further education, obviously you're here because you're searching for some degree, but obviously if you have something pursuant to computer science, electrical engineering, in your case, if you guys take a few more classes within the networking foundation, that's a great start. As they're talking about here, right off the bat, Python is important. So most of you should have already taken my Python course here. And I'm working on getting more Python courses. So there's going to be a second level. And the idea is that you could understand how to write better scripts and programs to help review and work with the SIME system. So those of you that have taken Python, you're familiar with APIs, etc., may have done those on your final project or something like that. This would allow you to use the language within the SIME so that you can send data from different things, crunch it in Python, and then send it on to the SIME. And then, of course, Linux skills are extremely important because Linux is heavily used within the SOC. I would say not just widely, but heavily used. And then there's other networking and security environments, and so those are extremely valuable to your skill set. So furthering your education on top of being a CyberOps associate, these are some skills that you may want to pick up along the way. Some other places that you can come take a look at these. A variety of websites that are out there. They're talking about information security. So these are the most, job aggregators, your standard Indeed, Career Builder, USA Jobs, Glassdoor, LinkedIn, etc., that would give you access to that as well. Okay. There we go. There's the website I was talking about. So there's cyberseek.org. And cyberseek.org is a great one to go out and visit. What's nice about this is you can pick a given state and you can see how many openings that are specifically related to cybersecurity. So for example, if we went and took a look at Kansas here, you can see that the supply of workforce for cybersecurity is extremely low. The national average is 1.8. We're in about a 2.4 range. And then the geographic concentration, this is kind of an average level. But if you look over here at the right, you'll see the type of job titles that would be equivalent to this. And so we see cybersecurity engineer and cybersecurity analyst. Top two jobs in the cybersecurity field, even in Kansas, is going to be the analyst job that this course tries to prepare you for. Other major cybersecurity realms is going to be Texas and Florida. Those are probably the two largest cybersecurity areas in the US. They also have the most amount of technology and jobs, et cetera, that are able to go through there. So if you'll notice here, just in Texas alone, there's 46,000 job openings that are available today that are people looking to get them filled. Where in the US, we're down to 25, or in the US, in Kansas, we're down to 2,500. So very large hotspots over here in Florida, particularly in Texas. You also have New York, Virginia, who actually has 54,000 openings, and then North Carolina in the 20,000 range. California, you got almost 68,000 jobs that are currently available. What's also nice is if you come down here and scroll down a little bit, you can see what area these jobs are in. So some of these are going to be in the analyze section. You may also have some in the operate and maintain, as well as securely provision. And then even better yet, it's going to show you these certifications. So most of these, for example, if you are a certification holder, this is how many people that are currently hired that have this particular cert. Notice it's the ones we just talked about. You have your GIAC, Security Plus, CISSP, CISA, which is an auditor one from ISC Squared, et cetera. SIP is another big one from ISC Squared. But you'll notice how many of these in blue are ones that are requesting certification. So for example, you know, out of the 67,000 out there, 13,000 of them are looking for CISSPs. And so this is a great way for you to get an idea of where you want to be, say over here in Kansas, just for an example here. You'll notice here that they really need their CISSPs, but they're also looking for just basics of CompTIA, et cetera. If you hold a CIPP, you'll notice that only 17 people hold that have reported in this particular information, and 19 is what they're currently looking for. So this is a cert that not very many people are carrying, which means it may be a great one for you to go chase and be able to market yourself. So again, cyberseek.org, there's several different ways that they'll give you some information on here. I encourage you to go and take a look at that. And they'll be able to look at both public sector as well as private sector and what's out there today. Remember that cybersecurity is needed on all job fronts. So it doesn't matter whether, you know, you're just a networking operation company, you may be a utility company. So for example, out here in Hayes, you would have Midwest Energy has a pretty good sized SOC, and they have a good knock that they're taking care of their network, but they have to protect that network, particularly because they are a utility. You can't have people coming in and messing with their PLC controllers, turning off and on the power grids, et cetera. So they have to have a pretty high level of cybersecurity running on their side. Okay. Other ways to get experience, there's always internships are out there. And if you're interested in trying to get internships, let me know. From time to time, jobs come up and they say, hey, we're looking for, you know, about to be graduates from your bachelor's program. We're also looking at maybe they want to do a temporary internship during the summer, et cetera. Those are a little tougher to come by with the current, you know, COVID-19 type work and stuff like that. But I still have some cybersecurity students that were able to get some internships this summer. They were just restricted as to how much and how far they could go with. Scholarships and awards, try to fill those gaps. Temporary agencies, these are great ways to, you know, work for 90 days. and then if the employee is a good match, you can go work there. And then your first job, even if it has no experience in the cybersecurity field, working for your call centers, your support desks. That's actually a good requirement. If you're doing your CISSP, you have to have so many years of experience. So not only do you have to pass the certification, you also have to have X amount of years of experience. And it's a pretty good amount. I think it's like 5 to 7 in order to be fully certified for that particular certification. But they count years of service, for example, of your call center or your support desk. Those are great ways for you to jump in and move in. And I myself actually started quite a bit in the call center and support desk area. I started within a DirecTV realm when I first got out here to Hayes and I was going to college. And then I eventually moved to Next Tech and worked on their help desk for many years, probably 4, 5, 6 years. And then I eventually went and did their research and development, and I was able to get that job because of my experience on the call desk. And then that landed me into another job where I started writing curriculum and content for colleges. So you never know where these little jobs, they seem like they're mundane and you don't want to be there, but you never know where it leads. If you can actually memorize all the equipment, you can answer all your trouble tickets, you do it in a quick manner, etc. Those are all traits that are going to allow you to get up to a SOC or a NOC type job, which is, it's just better yet. And the way you do that is just going through trouble tickets. You'll never get more challenged than sitting at a particular support desk or a NOC or a SOC like you would anywhere else. You're going to get off the wall challenges every day. And if you're a challenge junkie and really like to go through and have something new and chase that down, it's a lot of fun. I'll tell you that. I've been there, done that. The adrenaline gets good, especially if there's a big emergency to it. You know, if they're going to affect a business or you've got somebody that's hacking your network and you actively be able to monitor it, protect it, and then shut them down, and then further report it on to things like the FBI or the KBI, and then they can process their case at that point. All right, so we had a lab becoming the defender. I believe you guys have this one in your lab set, so I'll let you take care of that. Next section here is just kind of a recovery. So what did you end up learning today? The main things that you need to remember, and these are going to be things that are like on your exam. The major elements of a SOC include the people, the processes, and then the technologies you use in order to manage and efficiently do the SOC job. And so those job roles are going to be your Tier 1 alert analyst, your Tier 2 incident responder, and your Tier 3 threat hunter. And then you have the SOC manager who sits over that. The Tier 1 analyst monitors incidents, opens tickets, and then performs basic threat mitigation. You're using SIME systems, which are used for collecting and filtering data, detecting, classifying threats, and then analyzing and investigating those threats. So this is a main system that you use. And a SIME could be a very big combination of a couple different softwares that are using this to put everything together. Or so I say softwares, but applications that would be able to put things together. The SOAR itself integrates as with threat intelligence and automates incident investigation and the response workflows based on playbooks developed by the security team. Again, these playbooks are basically scenarios and ways that you would play out or carry out for a particular given threat. And then you have things such as KPIs. Again, this is your performance indicators. So key performance indicators. They're devised to measure different aspects of the SOC performance, particularly working on dwell time, mean time to detect, MDDT. I did that backwards, MTTD. Mean time to respond, MTTR. Mean time to contain, MTTC, as well as your time to control. As we mentioned before, you have to understand that there's a balance between security and availability within a network. The security cannot be so strong that it interferes with employees and functions. And then you also need to have relevant careers and SOCs are available from different organizations, which is these cybersecurity certifications. Now, again, I mentioned this last time on these certifications. This course is going to prep you to be a Cisco CyberOps associate. If you decide to take your certification at the end of this course or shortly thereafter, say sometime during this winter, there's generally a discount coupon. In order to be eligible for that, you usually have to do really well on the final exam. And so I'll get you some final information once we get a little closer. And that covers today's module in the cybercrime and the fight against cybercrime. So I'm going to go ahead and end this presentation.